ChatGerry, structural load and bridge failure, vascular fragility and stroke, number 1542, BPT095, February 20, 2026. Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation, category stroke. Preface, in June 2025, I suddenly felt dizzy at home. 15 minutes later, the upper right side of my face went numb. I knew immediately that I was having a stroke. My wife drove me straight to Stanford Hospital, only 10 minutes away. A CT scan confirmed a small hemorrhage in the brainstem, and my blood pressure at that moment was 175 mmHg. I was discharged 2 days later, but returned within 12 hours because of unexpected multiple seizures. After several more days in the hospital, I finally went home. Months later, when my stroke specialist showed me nearly 100 CT images, I saw many tiny white dots, which were calcified and hardened microvessels of my brain. In that moment, my engineering training memory from mid and early 1970 came back to me. My brain looked like an aging steel-reinforced concrete bridge, full of micro cracks that had been growing for decades until one final rupture occurred resulted from a hurricane or an earthquake. A stroke is not a sudden accident, it is the final failure of a structure that has been under stress for many years. To metabolic eras, my stroke did not begin in 2025. It began decades earlier. From 1990 to 2009, I lived with extremely poor diabetes control for 20 years. My post-meal glucose often went above 300 mg DL, and my HbA1c eventually reached 13%. I relied entirely on medication, metformin, while working long hours building a high-tech company in Silicon Valley. During those 20 years, most of the long-term damage, my estimated 91% of total damage to my small brain vessels occurred. Everything changed in 2010, after kidney failure requiring dialysis, severe neuropathy near a toe amputation, and retinopathy near blindness forced me to redesign my entire lifestyle. I stopped all medications and relied entirely on lifestyle changes, such as weight loss, diet control, sleep improvement, persistent walking, and stress control. My BMI dropped from 31 to 24. HbA1c dropped from 13% to 6%, and my blood pressure normalized. Even though this second period lasted 16 years, it caused only a small amount of 9% vascular damage. The lesson is very simple. It is not age alone that destroys my blood vessels. It is metabolic load from my poor lifestyles. Understanding stroke through an engineering lens. To understand stroke risk, think of your blood vessels the way an engineer thinks about a steel-reinforced concrete bridge. Calcification is like internal microcracks and weakened bridge material. Pulse pressure reflects stiffness of the structure. Systolic blood pressure is the external load pounding on the weakened wall. TSI, a simple index I created, shows how close the system is to failure. TSI is not meant to predict the exact day of a stroke. It is a stability gauge. Trigger sensitivity index TSI equals pp45 *SPP 120 *100. For many years, my TSI stayed high. That meant my vessels were stiff, fragile, and under heavy pressure. The stroke in mid-2025 was not caused by one bad moment. It was the final break after years of repeated stress. In 2026, my systolic blood pressure, pulse pressure, and TSI all dropped. This reduction in mechanical load is extremely meaningful. It shows that a fragile system can still be protected if the daily pounding force is reduced. CT scans show the structural damage, MRI shows the tissue consequences, but daily blood pressure measurements show the ongoing risk. That is why I track systolic pressure, pulse pressure, and TSI every day. Bridge failure analogy: a concrete bridge does not collapse the day a heavy truck crosses it. It collapses after decades of repeated loading, water and salt intrusion, corrosion, and microcracks that slowly grow once damage is present. The best strategy is not to add more steel. The priority is to reduce the load, stop further corrosion, seal cracks, and monitor the structure continuously. Our brain's small vessels behave the same way. Lowering systolic blood pressure and avoiding sudden spikes is like reducing truck weight. Stable glucose is like stopping corrosion. Good sleep, hydration, and daily walking reduce daily stress on the system. Daily blood pressure monitoring acts like structural health sensors. Reinforcement alone does not save a bridge. Load reduction does. What patients can do: calcification cannot be reversed, but we can slow further damage and prevent rupture by avoiding blood pressure spikes, keeping glucose stable, maintaining healthy body weight, staying hydrated, sleeping well. and avoiding sudden emotional or physical stress. These actions reduce the daily load on fragile vessels. A simple philosophy. My mid-engineering training taught me to see systems over time, not isolated snapshots. A single blood pressure reading is like a single photo of a bridge. It tells me almost nothing, but a long-term trend, like a TSI movie, shows the real story. My goal is simple: turn invisible risk into a visible signal that patients can monitor every day. Conclusion: a stroke and a collapsing bridge follow the same rule. Long-term damage plus repeated stress eventually leads to sudden failure. We cannot erase old damage, but we can reduce today's load, slow tomorrow's deterioration, and monitor the system closely. That is how both bridges and human organs, such as heart and brain, survive longer. Disclaimer: I write this paper not for fame, but to share what I have learned so others can understand their health, prevent disease, and live longer, healthier lives. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C.